Hello and welcome to a very special, unplanned edition of the In the Money Players podcast. I was recording a segment that was originally meant to be for the late week show with Mike Maloney previewing Kentucky Downs, but it went so well and we had enough of it and it was ready early. So we decided we're going to leave it as a podcast of its own. There might be a couple of anomalies and things I say in there when I thought it was going to be part of the bigger show, but now you know what's going on. Great info from Mike Maloney coming up right after these messages. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Kentucky Downs. Want to remind folks one more time, what a weekend of contest action we have going. And there's contest action every day of this Kentucky Downs meet. There are 3 two-day contests, various price points. At the end, a turf handicapping champion will be named. You see it on screen there. Sunday the 5th, Monday the 6th, that's the first one. Wednesday the 8th, and Thursday the 9th, that's the second one. And we wrap things up Friday the 11th and Saturday the 12th. To learn more about it, you can go to the pretty link on our website, inthemoneypodcast.com/kingturf. You can check out KentuckyDowns.com as well, but for specific info on the contest, inthemoneypodcast.com/kingturf. I also want to let you know that that's not the only contest action this weekend. On Saturday, we've got the Little Red Feather Cares tournament. This is one you're going to want to check out because it goes to an absolutely great cause. It's a $500 contest. You can play online. You can play on track. LRF Cares, thoroughbred racing charity, helping find homes for retired horses. Get all the information on this one and find the link to sign up in themoneypodcast.com/LRF. That's in themoneypodcast.com/LRF. Pro player Mike Maloney doing double duty on the network this week to give some general thoughts about this meeting that some horse players love and others are intrigued by, but a little confused by. We'll see if he can do a little bit of demystifying or at least clarifying in terms of what his approach is. Mike, how are things?
Everything's good, Pete. I'm just, since I'm on day to day, 2 days in a row, I'm going to check out your retirement plan when I get finished here.
It's going to be a very quick glance. I'll put it that way. So Kentucky Downs, this is a track that has been around in its current iteration for a couple of decades now. Just start with a very broad question. How important is it to you? I know you keep records and you look at how you do at different meets, different times of the year, et cetera. What's your historical performance been like at Kentucky Downs and how much are you looking forward to it?
It's been a good track for me, Pete, but my results are wildly up and down at Kentucky Downs on a daily basis, on a meet basis. It's basically there. I'm playing more for the 1 or 2 big scores than at any other meet that I play.
That's interesting. I would imagine that affects the way you construct your tickets at Kentucky Downs. Why don't we start there? How is it different writing a bet at Kentucky Downs versus what you might do at your home track of Keeneland?
Well, my approach at Kentucky Downs is looking at the big picture is just with their low takeout and the large fields, it just leads to big payoffs. So I'm not going to try to fit a square peg into a round hole. If it's a track that gives you the opportunity for a big score in a race in verticals or horizontals, then I want to try to take advantage of that because that's harder to find in today's racing. It gets harder to find every year. So in the verticals, for example, I'll play a lot of 50-cent tries and 10-cent supers.
That's interesting.
Which I won't. I'll do some of that at Keeneland, but not a lot. With the idea at Kentucky Downs of just trying to be inclusive, I don't want to overspread. I don't tend to make huge 6-horse boxes or something like that. I still try to find a key horse, and often they're big prices at Kentucky Downs that I end up using for my keys. I don't really know of a clear reason for that, but I'm happy that it works out that way. So if I'm lucky enough to have the key run in, then I try to structure the bets where I'm as inclusive as possible with the rest of the field And in those 10-cent supers and 50-cent tries, hopefully if the key runs in, I can catch even a borderline hard to find horse in with it. So if my key's a price and you catch some 40-1 that's not easy to find, then you're sitting on a big payoff even on a small bet amount.
Are you more likely when you're structuring a bet, let's just use the super as an advantage, to use that one key horse and then spread through, I don't know, 5 different runners in the other spots? Or do you look to split hairs more than that and have horses that you're looking at that have to be 1, 2, 3, or horses that have to be 3, 4? Just curious to get a little more insight as to how simple or complex it is when you discuss this more inclusivity you're using it in writing your verticals at Kentucky Downs.
Yeah, I'll do it both ways, Pete. Some races, there will be situations where I may only use a horse third and fourth. And there may be some situations where I only use a horse first and second. But leading back to this same idea of trying to spread more than usual and trying to be inclusive of other horses and other positions, I will often have a small ticket at the lowest denomination where the horse that I only use for third and fourth in my bigger plays, maybe I include him also in second in the other ticket, or maybe I even put him on top. For the smallest amount I can, just trying to not stray from the idea of I don't want to be too fine with my wagers, and I want to let a little chaos work in my favor rather than work against me.
In the book, you write about the kill bet, that idea of trying to find that one combination or a couple of combinations that you really like above the others and really lay into it. Kentucky Downs doesn't sound like the best place for a kill bet, though I imagine it's a bit situational.
Yes, a lot of bets, a lot of races, I might not even make the kill bet because I don't have a clear opinion. I wouldn't know who to make the kill bet on. But probably half the races I would still make the kill bet, and there'll be a few races each meet where maybe because of I think I see a bias on the track, or maybe a shorter field that I just feel like really narrows down, where I'll still make several kill bets during the meet of some size. But it's all situational. I don't want to force that, and just because it's something I do everywhere else, it just doesn't fit in as well at Kentucky Downs.
I imagine the principles are similar in the horizontals to the verticals we've been talking about. There'll be some races where you can have a horse that you can use as a key in the horizontals, and is it the same idea of being more inclusive in the other legs?
Yes, exactly, and it's harder to cover even in pick threes at Kentucky Downs because it's hard to find that single. A lot of times it's hard to have the same level of confidence in a single in a 11 horse field at Kentucky Downs with several horses in there that have never seen that course before versus a 6 horse field at Saratoga where horses have had a race over the track. So that factors in. I find that it's harder to find a key at Kentucky Downs, but when you do find something that you believe in there, even if it's a short price that you think might be a horizontal key, it's really worth a lot, because even an even money shot that's tied in with a couple of bombs in other races, those pick 4s and pick 5s, even with a heavy favorite included, can still pay astronomical prices.
I want to get to the handicapping side of things in a minute, but I did want to ask you, just casually mentioned about picking up on a bias occasionally at Kentucky Downs. I know you keep notes year in, year out. What biases do you typically see? I assume they're tied to the weather.
Well, I was thinking about this morning. It can be tied to the weather. There's times when it gets very dry there, And I think those times tend to be speed favoring more than anything else. And then there are times when it turns into a bog, and you can get anything. You can get speed, you can get outside closers, and it's a track that the track profile of Kentucky Downs seems to change meet to meet. So I don't have the same level of confidence in that track as I do the inner turf course at Saratoga. I'm going to expect nearly every day that I play it that saving ground and having tactical speed are going to be helpful. At Kentucky Downs, I'm not going to go into the meet with any preconceived bias notions. I'm going to let the track show me and tell me how it wants to play.
As you wrote in Betting with an Edge, if you want to play the bias game, best to do so on your toes. If you want to dance with bias, do it on your toes. So I was just going to ask, I think you've already answered it, but so you don't typically see any trends between inside and outside either on that turf course?
Well, long-term trends, no, but by day-to-day bias, yes. It can, but it can be basically, it can be a speed rail, or it can be you're better off way out on the outside of the course. Especially, I've seen lots of days when you wanted to make all the horses that were making winning moves from off the pace. Often it will be on the outside of that course in the stretch. You won't see a lot of horses just rush up the rail a lot of times at Kentucky Downs. So there's no prevailing bias meet to meet that I can help you with, but some people seem to have the notion that there's never a bias at Kentucky Downs, and that's wrong. So be aware that it can lean one way or the other, and watch the races and evaluate as you go.
We talked off air about how your handicapping changes significantly at a meet like Kentucky Downs. I'm sure the listeners and viewers would want to hear about those specifics. Well,
I don't know how impressive my ideas there are. It's pretty simple, really. I believe that Kentucky Downs is the biggest horse for course track in the country. And it makes sense if you think about it, that it would be that way, because it's the most unusual track we have in the States. You turn right, you turn left, you go uphill, you go downhill. Horses have never seen that before. So it stands to reason that a horse that has run on the course before and run well there would have an advantage over a horse that comes in from another track or another state, and the first day that they see that course is the day that they race on it. A lot of horses don't stable there. Almost everyone ships in the day of the race. So it can throw a horse. Some horses ship in and love it, but a lot of horses won't run their race the first time they're on that course.
Obviously, the easiest thing to do is just go back in the PPs, look at lifetime PPs, and look for course and distance experience, and ascertain from that whether or not a horse is going to like the configuration. But is there more to it than that? Have you noticed anything in terms of different sire lines or different characteristics that horses may have that you can see in their PPs who are running there for the first time that may give you a bit of an edge in terms of whether they're going to like the unusual configuration or not?
The sire line call is a good call, Pete. I've taught you well. I remember sending out a tweet a while back about you had a PR in a half marathon or maybe a full marathon, and I tweeted out about how there may be a little Dynaformer blood in that pedigree somewhere. But that factors in. The first thing I'll touch on is just the process of figuring out who's the horse for course. Sometimes you'll look at the form and it'll be, if you're looking at 8 or 12 line PPs, it may show on your page immediately. But if you see that a horse has run, even if they maybe didn't hit the board or didn't run the greatest buyer figure, I still like to look back, and I use Formulator for that. And I'll go back and pull up the lifetime starts, and I love to find a hidden gem where maybe the horse didn't even hit the board, but it ran a fifth beating a couple of lengths with trouble, or maybe my bias notes from back then showed that it wasn't in the preferable part of the track or was closing on a speed day. And the horse is fit, its current form is good, and I project that it can run as well as the favorite by going back and projecting off that troubled trip at Kentucky Downs that's no longer in the PPs in the racing form. So that's a great situation. That's what I'm looking for there. It doesn't mean that the horse that I'm targeting is going to run every time or going to hit the board every time, but you're taking a huge edge when you're getting 20-1 on that horse that has shown that he can handle the Kentucky Downs surface, and he has shown ability, maybe hidden in the race, but he's shown the ability to compete in the class that he's entered in today. So that's the optimum scenario that I'm looking for there.
I love it because everybody sees the horse that's 3 for 3 at Kentucky Downs, right? The market's going to cotton on to that horse that was fifth beaten 2 with the trip, maybe 13 races back, not even in everybody's paper. That's where you might get the 20-1, where if it said 2 for 2 at Kentucky Downs, the horse is 8-1.
Exactly. And to follow up on the other part of your question about the turf sires, it can be a sire line, or it can be the other side of the pedigree. It can be on the dam side, but I call it true turf breeding, and it's just I don't know exactly how to define it, but horses get away maybe on the turf at Gulfstream Park with, you don't have true turf breeding. You have some speed and you can handle the turns, and you can do well down there a lot of times. When you bring that game to Kentucky Downs, doesn't work very often. You need, I'm looking for Dynaform, your family line there, or, a War Front, something like that. We all know what dyed in the wool turf breeding looks like. Maybe an Irish mare or a British mare. Just things like that stand out and mean something to me on the course at Kentucky Downs.
It's really the purest galloping turf course. We talk a lot on the shows about the different kinds of turf runners, especially when we're talking about English and Irish racing. The turn of foot, the quickeners, they sort of hang around. They put a race to bed in a number of strides because they can go from 0 to 60 essentially so quickly. But then there's a runner like Japan we talked about the other day. These big galloping Galileos, they take a long time to get going, but boy, once they do, they can fly. You got to think Kentucky Downs, maybe the Woodbine's main turf course. They're really the only 2 turf courses in the USA I'd describe as galloping. Much of the others are really all about that turn of foot. And if you don't have that, it's going to be hard at a lot of places. Not so necessarily Kentucky Downs. Is there any affinity? I'm just making this up on the spot, but would you potentially upgrade a horse that had run well around Woodbine's proper turf, trying a test like Kentucky Downs, or is it too unique with the different turns and camber and hills that you were describing that it's really completely its own deal?
No, I think that makes sense. The way that I kind of frame it in my mind is I'm less impressed by a horse that has run its best race on a tight turf course. Those real agile turn runners, I think of them as, a horse that's agile enough to kind of lean into the turn and run as fast on tight turf turns as he does on straightaways. A horse that Belmont turf course, the outer there, would be another example. A horse that runs well there, more likely, in my estimation, to carry that over to Kentucky Downs.
There's been some terrific stuff. Anything else on the handicapping or betting, money management side? Any other nuggets you have for the viewers and listeners out there regarding this upcoming Kentucky Downs meet? I know folks are very excited about these 3 2-day handicapping contests. There's going to be a lot of people playing who are maybe not that familiar. So any other tidbits you have would be appreciated.
Have one other little tidbit before I go there. Just want to say. Kentucky Downs, when it started out as dueling grounds, and when it was a young track, nobody'd ever heard of it, unless except the most hardcore of horse players, and they made their name in racing by offering, in my mind, the customers what they want, and that was a unique approach. As strange as it sounds, in horse racing, they gave us full fields. They lowered takeout, drastically lowered takeout, and those are 2 of the things that horse players, want most, whether they realize they want it or not. It creates prices, and it creates interesting races, and it creates opportunity. So, that I always have a warm feeling about Kentucky Downs because of that. And Corey Johnson, who was one of the driving forces behind that, he and I had several conversations about those things early on. So I feel like I had a small part in it. And I just keep hoping that other tracks, instead of being maybe jealous of Kentucky Downs' success, will learn something from them and emulate some of their ideas going forward. But off my soapbox and back into the handicapping, I have to do that.
No, you're welcome.
The price you pay for getting me with no retirement plan is I get 30 seconds on the soapbox.
100%. And just to reiterate, I mean, we always say vote with your dollar. And whether we're talking about trying to get more people involved playing in the Horse Player Happy Hour Tour, where we get, a situation where players get to compete for 20,000 extra without putting up a penny themselves, or whether it's a track doing things the right way and bringing takeouts down to these manageable levels and creating a true festival of racing, continuing to innovate with things like this turf championship. As horse players, if we shrug our shoulders when we see these things, they're going to say, they don't care. Let's give them another jackpot bet. But when we support the $1 pick six, when we support Kentucky Downs, when we support Horse Player Happy Hour, we're making things better for ourselves. So don't you dare think of coming here without your soapbox, Mike. Players need to hear this stuff.
Well, it's racing's biggest success story, I guess, of my time of being a professional horse player. They went from the outhouse to the penthouse. They started nowhere, and now everybody knows who they are, and their handle is. I wish I knew from when they implemented the takeout reductions to now what the percentage of handle increase is, but it's not in the tens of 10 or 20%. It's in the hundreds.
Yeah, that's great.
Wake up is my message to some other people in racing. But the last thing I would wrap up with on the betting side is I don't want to make Kentucky Downs sound like it's an easy beat, because it's not. Go in, or at least I go into the meet with the mindset of there's a lot of races where I'm not going to cash anything. There's a lot of races where I'm just going to have to toss those tickets and turn the page. And I need to keep my mindset positive. I need to understand that this is a unique track. This is a unique meet. And 1 or 2 races can just determine my whole meet. 1 or 2 races played properly, when you get the right opportunity, can make you have a great meet when you cashed very little the rest of the time. So that mindset is important when you're playing Kentucky Downs, because you're not, unless you're a genius, you're not going to sweep that card. You need to just think about when a race does come my way and the horses I like run in at prices, I want to cash, because and the way to do that is to really work on your betting strategy and really work on your ticket structure, so that you don't want that race or two where you're right to be a near miss. You need to hit it.
I love the advice about staying positive too. When it only takes one, potentially over the course of a 6-day meet, if you get off your game, if you get frustrated, if you give up too early, if you start getting lazy, if you start going on tilt, that's not going to work. You gotta keep that in mind. It only takes one. Be happy with your play. Work on your play to the point where you're happy about it. Let me know what you think of the shot when it's at its apex, not whether it goes through the hoop or not. It's really, that's always the case, right? But all the more so at a meet like Kentucky Downs.
It's like one of the great coaches of all time, Herb Brooks, said, "Play your game."
I love it. So we've got you covered on the mental side, we got you covered on the betting strategy, and we got you covered on the handicapping here, Mike. I really appreciate your time today. This was originally going to just be a segment on the late week show. I think this is a standalone show of its own. There's so much good stuff in here. So we thank you for yet again bailing out JK and providing us some great content here on the In the Money Media Network.
All right. Work on that retirement plan.
We'll get to that right away. Thanks everybody for joining us for this special Kentucky Downs meet preview.